Would you be interested in playing one of the most fun and complete characters in Fatal Fury? Then look no further than Andy Bogard, the first DLC of City of the Wolves. Andy is absolutely insane and super strong and has a tool for every single situation. He has good neutral skip, neutral control, mix-up, Oki, pressure, frame traps, whatever you want on a character, Andy probably has that and more. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to play Andy, going from his neutral to his pressure, mix-up tools, Oki, and also a fully detailed combo guide in the second section of the video. So if you enjoy this type of content, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing. It helps the channel to keep growing. And now let's get into the Andy guide. So the first topic is gotta be the neutral, right? And how exactly do we play neutral with Andy? I think that many people might feel a little overwhelmed by this character and how many tools he has to actually execute neutral. So what you gotta do and what I recommend you to do if you want to simplify that and basically have an easier time with the neutral with this character is that you need to understand Andy's toolkit divided in three, depending on the range in which you are fighting on the screen. On the full screen range, Andy is good but not the best because his fireballs do not hit the opponent. The meterless versions of the flips actually can whiff unless you move into the mid-range like in this example. So even though Andy can be strong at full screen with his EX teleport and basically neutral skip all the time, is arguably not the best version of him, and he is much stronger when he can be a little more overwhelming with more options in the mid-range. This of course does not mean that EX flip is bad. It's still super strong and you should use it a ton if your opponent is not ready for it. So when you play neutral, I recommend you to basically at the start of each fight try and see what people do when you EX flip. Do they react? Do they dash? And if they are not ready for it, just abuse it and play the full screen range with that tool specifically. But the thing is, as you're seeing on the screen, most of the time I do not fight in the full screen range because I think that fighting in the mid range is where Andy shines, because not only you get access to more of the flip options which can be super strong and lead to full combos, but also you can have access to all his other toolkit, his fireballs, his big buttons. So in that sense, you can fight in the long range, but try to avoid it if you can, because when you get to the mid-range, Andy is a different monster. And well, what happens next if you already were able to terrorize your opponent full screen with neutral skips and also even punish them for throwing fireballs thanks to EX flip? What exactly do you do when you move into the mid-range where Andy actually becomes an absolute machine? And why is that? Because in the mid-range, Andy gets access to all his moveset. You can use all the options out of flip, both EX and non-EX, and you have a 4-way mix-up, being that low, cross-up, command grab, or just button right in your face. And then not only all of that, but he can also use fireballs both in the ground and in the air, and the fireballs in the air stop Andy's momentum when he's jumping, so that means that you can bait anti-airs with it. And this makes this character absolutely insane because the mental stack when you go against him and you are in the mid-range is really big. It's basically a nightmare when the character is close to you and you don't know what the hell he's gonna do out of flip, or if he's going to do air fireball and make you with a huge committal reversal, or maybe he's also gonna press a big button in the ground like heavy punch or heavy kick and get a counter hit on you and a full BMB. Or maybe he's just gonna wait and play defense and get a DP break when you try to jump in. So in that sense, Andy is immensely strong in the mid-range because he has so many options that it's just overwhelming thinking about what he's exactly going to do. So when you are in that position, you need to abuse that and use all the options that you have to deal with your opponent, because maybe they're going to rush in and be aggressive just because they don't want to deal with you. So be ready to be both defensive and be offensively overwhelming so that your opponent cannot guess what are you gonna do next when you're on your best position, in which you have like, I don't know, 16 options out of the mid-range. It is crazy. So that is arguably the best position for Andy in the neutral game. And if you follow all of the advice I've given in this section, you're probably gonna have a good neutral with Andy in both the long and the mid-range. But as I said earlier, this character can be a little overwhelming. He has a ton of options and you can be confused about what to really use depending on the situation. So be patient, give yourself time to understand Andy's special moves and buttons so that you can play the neutral in the best way over time. And at the start, you know, just try to abuse the most broken options like EX flip and you're probably gonna do very good. And now let's move into the close range section. And this, of course, more than neutral, is mix-up, pressure, Oki, and I'm basically going to teach you his best buttons and also the best options that he has to apply pressure when he's right on top of his opponent. So let's get into that now. A key thing to understand Andy's pressure is that you can use the mid-range options up close and do, for example, light flip or EX to apply the same mix-up, or use the EX versions of fireballs both in the ground and in the air as Oki for example to apply pressure and get plus frames. So don't sleep on necessarily simplifying your pressure and using the mid-range neutral options also as mix-up options in both Oki and strengths. When it comes to buttons, Andy has two that are super good up close. The first one is heavy kick because you can cancel it into forward feint and get plus frames, which means you can get a full combo out of it if you link it into down heavy punch, or if people are blocking you can just dash and grab or jump to bait maybe someone that is trying to take a grab, you know, the typical flowchart that there is with feint cancels in this game. So try to use close heavy kick as much as you can. It is a very good button for Andy and it's gonna give you a ton of pressure. And the second monster button up close is light kick. It's plus on block and also naturally links on hit with heavy punch. So if you want to apply pressure with the best buttons possible up close on your opponent's face, you gotta use either light kick or heavy kick and then do forward feint. Those are basically your best options. And if you want a very simple sequence of pressure that is effective, you can use any of the normals I said earlier and then use EX Fireball or Flip or also EX Flip. And that is going to actually give you either more plus frames on block, or you are going to get an opportunity to open up your opponent with the flip, or maybe they just mash and you hit them with the EX Fireball. So in that sense, Andy's pressure is super strong. It's kind of like meter efficient because you only need one EX move on block to actually get the pressure going, and if you open people up, you know, it's just a loop and it's very hard to deal with. Another couple of things that you gotta understand about Andy's pressure is that one, you can use all the options out of Flip as Oki setups. If you know that people are gonna block, you can use the command grab, and if you know that they're gonna mash, and this is why it's so good, you can get a full combo out of a couple of options because on counter hit you have enough plus frames to link it into a normal. So don't sleep on using Flip not only to apply mix-up maybe on the mid-range and also when you are up close applying pressure on a string, but also use the Flip to open people up or either check them when they are trying to mash. And then the other thing that you gotta understand is that Andy is such an overwhelming character. He has so many options that people are probably going to block a lot. And what does that mean? That with Andy you should grab people a lot because they are going to block a lot. You know, it's a consequence of him being such a mix-up monster and also being such an overwhelming character. So if you see that people are blocking a ton, start grabbing them. It's going to be free damage, free Oki. So do not sleep on using, you know, abnormal and then moving into grabbing them after a dash. Like, it's going to be very overwhelming to add that layer into the whole sequence of mix-ups. And the last advice about pressure before we move into the combo guide is that you need to try and use EX Fireball in the air as an Oki setup if you think that people are going to do a reversal on you, you know, ADP, a super, whatever. And why is that? Because EX Fireball in the air stops Andy's momentum and movement, so he just stands there and puts the fireball in front of him, which is a huge hitbox. And if the other guy is doing a DP on wake up, he's gonna clash with the fireball, not with you. And that is gonna give you maybe a super after you can link it, or even a full combo depending on the timing and the angle of the situation. So don't sleep on using EX Fireball as Oki in the air because it can deal with any reversal, and in the worst situation you are probably going to clash with the enemy reversal, but since they clash with your EX Fireball, it's gonna be your turn again because you use an EX move, so they are on a hard knockdown state. It is immensely strong and you need to give it a try because it makes wake up situations for the opponent an absolute nightmare. So now that you understand Andy's neutral and all the options that he has for pressure, mix-ups, Oki, and plus frames, we can move into the combo guide. So I'm gonna show you all the BNBs that you need to know to play Andy at a relatively efficient level.